In 1956, the Danish philosopher Løgstrup published The Ethical Demand, a work that became widely recognized both in Denmark and internationally. At the heart of this philosophy is a profound truth. Every time we interact with another person, we hold a piece of their life in our hands. This creates an unspoken yet vital responsibility to honor that connection, to nurture it, and to be mindful of the ripple effect our actions create. Løgstrup's ethics emphasize the importance of stepping into another's perspective, not merely as an abstract principle, but as a genuine instinctive act. Ideally, empathy should emerge naturally, allowing us to see others as fellow human beings. Yet, when this natural response falters, when we fail to act with kindness we instinctively know is right, then ethical principles must serve as a guiding force and necessary imperative for moral action. Perhaps this is the foundation of Posner and Kouzes' offer of such a guiding principle. Through their ongoing research on leadership, they define two non-negotiables of leadership, the first being treating others with dignity and respect. When we reflect on this deeply, we see that it applies far beyond leadership. It is a fundamental life principle. Do we treat ourselves with dignity and respect when we fail to extend the same to others? From a Buddhist perspective, when we neglect others' dignity, we're not truly present. We're caught in delusion, ignorance of how things truly are. The reality is that we are deeply interconnected. What we do to another, we also do to ourselves. Buddhism suggests that delusion works in many ways. Sometimes we act solely based on how we feel in the moment, rather than with mindful intention. Other times we become so absorbed in our own struggles, anxieties, fears, and traumas that we fail to consider others. Privilege can blind us, preventing us from seeing beyond our own experience. We might be driven by a desire to please or avoid conflict, choosing deception or silence over honesty. And of course, we're all remarkably skilled at self-justification. These tendencies often overlap. For instance, we might feel entitled to act impulsively while simultaneously avoiding accountability to spare ourselves discomfort. Regardless of the reason, the result is the same. We forget that we hold a piece of another's life in our hands. Treating others with dignity and respect begins with how we treat ourselves. When we cultivate self-respect by honoring our own needs, holding ourselves accountable, and speaking to ourselves with kindness, we create the inner conditions for extending the same to others. Without a foundation of self-compassion balanced with radical accountability, our ability to engage with others in a meaningful and respectful way is diminished. True dignity flows outward. How we regard ourselves shapes how we show up in the world. A story I recently heard illustrated this clearly. A daughter-in-law focused all her family's ties on her own mother, leaving her children with little to no responsibility with her paternal grandmother. Despite the grandmother's repeated efforts to invite them, support them, and be present, she was excluded time and again until she stopped reaching out. Every holiday was spent with the maternal side of the family. Then, tragically, the mother passed away suddenly, and the father was diagnosed with rapid dementia. The daughter is now in deep distress. Yet the children, having barely known their paternal grandmother, have no meaningful relationship with her. Had the daughter-in-law acted with foresight rather than simply following her immediate feelings, she would now have a strong, supportive, extended family network. Her children, too, would benefit. But the cost of neglecting dignity and respect is real. It has left wounds that may never heal. There's a striking scene in the Danish Netflix series Secrets We Keep, where an employer generously compensates an au pair upon dismissing her. Thinking she was acting kindly, the employer is taken aback when the au pair in tears tells her, "You don't know anything about me or my life." The employer's mistake wasn't in the severance package. It was in failing to understand or truly see the au pair's reality. Genuine interest, curiosity, and care for another are essential to treating the other with dignity. Our emotions can deceive us. They tell us what feels good in the moment, but they rarely serve long-term well-being. Consider mindful eating. When I crave another piece of chocolate, I can step into the perspective of my future self, the version of me who wakes up tomorrow feeling sluggish. The same principle applies to relationships. Just because we don't feel like engaging with someone doesn't mean that doing so isn't ultimately the better choice. A friend or partner who habitually breaks promises based on how they feel in the moment may feel justified, but they erode trust. Over time, their relationships suffer as they fail to act with the bigger picture in mind. The other person left out of their decision-making feels dismissed and undervalued. This principle applies in the smallest daily interactions and in the grander life choices. When we make unilateral decisions, when we bully, when we exclude, we leave the other person with a deep sense of loss, isolation, and indignity. Actively engaging with dignity and respect benefits everyone, including ourselves. It's both a fundamental principle for growth and a guiding value for self-reflection. When we fail to uphold it, we also fail to honor the highest version of ourselves. Instead, we surrender to reactive impulses, shrinking into a lesser unconscious state, often reverting to the childlike version of ourselves. It is an ongoing practice requiring mindfulness and intention. When we neglect dignity and respect, we don't just hurt others, we stunt our own growth. So how can we cultivate dignity and respect in our daily lives? We can pause before reacting impulsively so that our emotions don't dictate our actions. We can hold our tongue when we feel charge and perhaps just allow a moment's silence or say that we just need to go for a walk. We can zoom out and expand our perspective, considering the long-term effects of our actions. We can be mindful of the promises we make and the expectations we set in others, because disregarding commitments erodes trust. We can seek clarity in relationships. Misunderstandings arise when assumptions go unchecked. We can reflect and recalibrate, identify where we've fallen short, and commit to doing better through careful analysis of what occurred. We can apologize sincerely when we've hurt somebody, because accountability repairs connection. Is there something you'd like to add to this list? What strategies have worked for you? Ultimately, dignity and respect shape leadership, deepen relationships, and enrich every facet of life. Whether interacting with a disabled person on a train, a taxi driver, a loved one, or a stranger, these moments define us, and they don't exist in isolation. Each action ripples outward, affecting the shared human experience. When we fail to honor others, we diminish ourselves, and often we set ourselves up for suffering in ways we don't foresee until it's too late. So here's a call for action. Living with dignity and respect isn't about grand gestures. It's about small, intentional acts woven into daily life. It's in the way we listen without interrupting, acknowledge someone's presence with a warm greeting, or pause before acting in frustration. These seemingly minor moments form the fabric of human connection, strengthening relationships and shaping the shared experience of those around us. But cultivating dignity and respect also requires self-examination. When was the last time we acted inconsiderately, yet justified it to ourselves? Perhaps even just yesterday. Did we dismiss someone's feelings out of irritation, ignore a request because it was inconvenient, or act impulsively without considering its impact? Recognizing these moments without self-condemnation, but with a willingness to learn, wearing our big pants allows us to grow beyond reactive patterns and step into a more intentional way of being. When we practice mindfulness in our intentions, dignity and respect cease to be abstract ideals and instead become the natural expression of who we are. Ongoing work, but with a clear benchmark. As you know, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic, your experiences. Please share.